In our regular on this program, LNP federal member Keith Pitt. Thanks so much for your time, Keith. Great to have you on the program, particularly on a day when the government is renewing its focus on the drought and hundreds of millions of dollars additional spending. Now, we don't know all the detail. What we do know is there's going to be some direct additional support for farmers, though, and for businesses to keep, I guess, hope alive in communities that have been so badly affected by the drought, Keith.
Well, it's great to be with you, and of course we continue to keep our focus on those individuals in need, and there has been some very welcome rainfall in some of those regions, but it doesn't rain grass and it doesn't rain money, and the Prime Minister has very clearly said that we'll continue to increase our support in terms of drought support. I look forward to the announcements as well. I have one region here which is drought declared, my second council region is not. But we know that there are areas which have been just in absolute devastation now for years. So we do need to do more, and we will do more.
Will you be happy if the government delivers anything less than the $1.3 billion that the Nationals have asked for?
Well, depending on who you talk to, Annalise, I'm either never happy or happy all the time. But the actuality here is pretty straightforward. We are fighting for every... we are fighting for every single dollar that we can find for regional communities. That is both in the short, medium and long term. And in my view, the long-term prospect is the main one. We need to ensure that we increase resilience moving forward for people who will be drought affected in the future. This is not something which will go away forever. You always get droughts in this country. And we need to ensure we do put in that dam and water infrastructure. And to do that, we need the states to be on board. So the quantum is a matter for Cabinet and the ERC. But obviously, we're all excited about what will be put forward now, but we'll continue to adjust if the drought stays with us.
When you look at the longer-term plans, as someone that has, as you said, got some of your own constituents affected by this drought, beyond the dams and so on, what are the other infrastructure moves that need to be made to make us more resilient?
Well, we have $100 billion spend in terms of infrastructure across the country now, in terms of our forward planning. But I've said very clearly and openly, and will continue to say exactly this. If there are projects, private projects, business projects which have been held up in terms of approvals, whether that's through the Department of Environment or elsewhere, we should fast track those. So we do have additional investment, not just government investment, moving into the regions that are in desperate need. Clearly we need to continue to do more on roads, and the roads of strategic importance. Now, there's a couple of $1 billion in there available for those critical linking infrastructure pieces, which will be rolled out. And it doesn't really matter whether we're building roads or bridges or something in between. It drives money into those communities which are desperate for cash flow, and we need to ensure we keep the population there.
Now, if I can ask you as well about this Auditor General's report into, in particular, regional jobs. It seems like the Auditor was quite scathing of the government, saying that this money has been going to marginal seats at the direction of ministers more than it was supposed to. It's something that has been seized on by Labor. Do you think that this has been mishandled?
Oh, I'm focused on outcomes. A $220 million investment from the coalition government has resulted in almost $470 million worth of infrastructure and other types of construction. That is great news for jobs in those regional communities. And they were targeted because they were high unemployment areas. It's a difficult issue to shift. I mean, it is just a point in time where the Auditor General has looked at this program. I mean, if we look at the changes since the 2019 election, we know that some of those seats are now held by Labor, some Labor-held seats are now held by the coalition, and the focus has to be on the people. They are the ones who put us into the parliament. They are the ones that decide who the government is, and my focus will continue to be on driving jobs and strengthening regional economies.
There was nearly a third of the applications that were recommended by officials that the ministerial group rejected, and then had another, well, 17% of these projects that were funded were not recommended. Is this a stand-up process? Is this something credible? It seems a bit of old-fashioned pork barrelling, isn't it?
I wasn't on the selection panel. I can't comment on the process that was utilised internally. But what I can say is that this is a program which works. I mean, just down the road from where I'm standing now, There's a project which is constructing some macadamia processing facilities and a tourism facility that will drive well-paid jobs into my region. And in fact, it's much larger than it was initially proposed. So that the investment from the federal government has meant that that's grown to a $22 million project from what was initially put forward. Now, that is real jobs that will be here into the future. These are the reasons we do these types of programs. And we need to keep that focus because it's a tough thing to break. Regional unemployment rates, if you want to get them down, then you need to do something which is a little bit innovative. And I think that's been a great program. The RGIP and the Regional Growth Fund is another one.
And we've had a few different Labor MPs come out and say that the Labor Party needs to get on board with coal in the last few weeks. This is surely welcome news from where you are in central Queensland.
Well, they certainly lost their voices during their last election campaign. But I think there's been a few canaries down the coal mine in Queensland in recent weeks. And I'd imagine they are singing loudly to the new Leader of the Opposition, Anthony Albanese, about how important the resources sector is. And look, I welcome the brothers and sisters to the cause. The resources sector is over $200 billion of the Australian economy, provides over 200,000 jobs, and you can't just discard it into the rubbish bin like Labor proposed at the last election.
When you talk about Anthony Albanese, he's renewed his commitment to coal in the sense that he says that coking coal, for example, huge amounts are needed to build wind turbines, so he says one complements the other. Do you agree with that analysis?
Well, I have seen sections of that speech, and what he said was there was enough to keep one mine open for one short period of time. That's not the entire Australian resources sector. The resources sector provides jobs right across the spectrum. So regardless of whether you're mining bauxite or coking coal or thermal coal, they're all important and highly paid jobs, and most of them are in regional Australia. This is the reason that the regions were so very fierce in the lash back against what was proposed by the Labor opposition at the last election. Some of them have woken up. I mean, Joel Fitzgibbon's been very noisy in recent weeks. He's the new rising star of the Labor Party, I think. And my hope is they never listen to him, because I think Joel's probably right.
Keith Pitt, thank you for joining us from your electoral office in Bundaberg. Is that actually that background from a farm near you? Or?
Yes, it is. This is out on Goodwood Road. It's one of our local cane farms. Right now, desperate for water, but we've got a state government that's sending 400 megalitres a day into the ocean from the Paradise Dam. Just disgraceful.
There you go. Well, it looks pretty lush from here. Thanks for your time, Keith Pitt.